G'day, I'm Warwick Schiller and welcome back to another installment of only asking yes questions from your horse. If you've watched The Principles of Training, my TV show The Principles of Training, one of the principles is they need to know the answer before you ask the question, and so this thing's exactly the same thing. And the question I've been asked is, how do you get a horse to stop from a canter off both reins? You know, like horses don't just know that. So I'm going through the process of showing you how to do this. So the last video I had was about the bend to a stop and the lateral flexion, and what those two turn into. If you have good lateral flexion, when you pick up here, your horse reaches around here for you. It's not like I drag his head around, but I pick up here and he reaches for me. He basically, the answer is soften and give to me. I'm not, it's not like I take it, I just set it up to where he gives. And so the next thing we're going to do, and well, it was the lateral flexion, then I talked about the bend to a stop. And when they bend to a stop, I want to take my hand to the side, his nose comes around, he bends his rib cage and steps his inside hind foot up underneath there. So I'm getting a rein to rib cage to hind foot connection. And what we do with that connection is then I start to teach them to back up. And when they're standing, and I teach them to back up when they're standing still and they're relaxed, okay? There's no use trying to teach it when they're uptight or anything. And when I do that, I just basically close my fingers about that much, and that's how I teach them to back up. Now, Bundy's just going to back up quite nicely just off me closing my fingers. Now, that doesn't happen the first time, but for the most part, it's usually pretty good. But the thing is, if I pick up here, let's say I pick up here and he doesn't soften and give, because that's what he did right then, didn't he? When I did that, he softened and he gave, okay? But if I pick up there and he doesn't soften and give, let's say he does that, I would just change the question. I'd go back to, instead of having pressure on both reins, I drop one of the reins and I just go back to the lateral flexion, which he knows how to soften and give. So that's the backup part of the whole thing. You've got to be able to just close your fingers. And this is, I don't pull anymore to teach a horse to back up. For me, if I've got to pull any harder than that, he doesn't want to back up. And so I'm not trying to make him back up. I'm just basically teaching him to back up, okay? And when you do it that way, there's no brace in there. There's no pushing against you. And for the most part, people have trouble with their horses backing up is because when they pick up here, the horse braces against them. Well, all that bending to a stop, taking your hand out to the side and having them bend in their body takes all that brace out of there. And so, like I said, I just, I like to be able to get to where I just close my fingers like that, and they should back up like that. Now, initially I don't back up 10 steps. Initially I'm going to close my fingers, and if they soften the slightest bit, I'll let go. If they shift their weight back the slightest bit, I'll let go. And if they take a step back, I'll let go. And eventually you get to where when you close your fingers, if you watch Bundy's hind legs right here, the three things will happen. I'm going to close my fingers and Bundy should soften. He should rock his weight back and then start backing his feet up, and it should happen one after another. So I close my fingers, he softens, rocks back, and then his feet start to move one after another. And so this is basically a stop off two reins from a standstill, okay? I'm going from 0 miles an hour to -1 mile an hour. It's a slowing down from a standstill. And so what that does is it takes away all the problems of trying to counteract forward motion, okay? I'm teaching him how to stop when he's already stopped, which, kind of helps explain the whole only asking yes questions. And like I said, if I picked up and there was no response, it's not like I'm stuck with a no answer. I will just go back to my previous foundation to get a yes answer. So in our next video, I'll show you how I start to transfer that back up right there into a stop from a walk, then a trot, then a canter.